The metadata of the Constitution. Forget the dense legal jargon for a minute. Today, we're diving straight into the pure, hard data behind Mexico's Constitution. In this explainer, we're going to look at the numbers that reveal exactly how a foundational legal framework actually survives and evolves in a rapidly changing world.
So, let's just get right into it. 108. That's our starting point. 108 years since its initial publication, back in February 1917. Now, reaching a century, that's absolutely a massive milestone for any political document. But, just looking at its age only gives us a tiny piece of the puzzle.
Because the real shocker, it hits you when you see this number, 271. That is the massive total of reform decrees published since day one. Now, hearing that, you might instantly think, wait, have they rewritten the whole thing over and over? Not exactly. These decrees actually usually roll out in packages, tackling a bunch of issues all at once to kind of keep the law of the land modernized. But the ripple effect of those packages is, well, it's monumental. We're talking about the modification of a staggering 834 articles over the last century. If we break that down, it averages out to roughly 2.5 reforms published every single year, altering nearly 8 articles annually. I mean, it literally proves this is a living, breathing document that is in constant motion. Origins and regional power. Okay, to really grasp this incredible evolution, we actually have to jump back to the political landscape of 1917. We need to see who was actually holding the pen. Because if you look at the 208 original deputies, there's a wild geographic imbalance. The visual weight heavily pulling toward the center tells a very clear story. Certain areas held a massive concentration of power, while others, they were practically ghost towns when it came to having a voice in the legislative halls. Just check out this breakdown. An overwhelming 42% of all that political influence was hoarded by just 5 states: Jalisco, Guanajuato, Veracruz, Puebla, and Michoacán. Contrast that with massive, sprawling territories like Chihuahua or Baja California, which were left with just a single, solitary voice each. It's such a fascinating historical X-ray of where the levers of power actually sat when the foundations were first poured. The untouchables versus the most modified. When we actually drill down into the text itself, the data exposes a literal tug-of-war. It's an ongoing battle between absolute tradition and nonstop adaptation. Against all odds, exactly 17 articles have survived an entire century completely untouched. 0 modifications. None. That represents about 12.5% of the entire constitutional text just sitting there as a perfectly preserved time capsule. Looking at this core foundation, we're talking about articles like 8, 9, 39, 50, and 64. They have weathered 100 years of endless political turbulence, and they remain exactly as they were written back in 1917. They are the absolute, immovable bedrock of the legal system. But then you swing to the exact opposite extreme, and you hit Article 73. This one single piece of text holds the historical record with an unbelievable 88 distinct reforms. 88! And actually, fun fact here, not only is it the most modified, but it was literally the very first article to be changed, all the way back in 1921. That's just 4 years after the ink dried on the original draft. The rhythm of Congress. So if we zoom out from the text and look at the political actors themselves, the metadata exposes a really peculiar rhythm of legislative momentum throughout history.
It's not a steady hum at all. It's a heartbeat with these dramatic spikes and flatlines. You have long periods of total legislative silence. I mean, the 28th, 31st, and 43rd legislatures passed 0 constitutional changes. Absolutely nothing. But then, abruptly, you hit these eras of massive revision, like the 60th legislature, which shattered records by pushing through 23 decrees.
The historical flow undeniably shows the legislative engine just accelerating the closer we get to the modern era. To put that into perspective, the current 66th legislature has already published 14 reform decrees in merely 5 months. The modern machine is running way hotter and way faster than ever before.
Presidents and their reforms. This acceleration becomes even more glaring when we track the constitutional changes pushed by Mexico's 23 presidents.
While early historical figures, like Venustiano Carranza, who originally promulgated the text, registered 0 changes during his mandate, the 21st century displays an undeniable, almost vertical explosion of executive-driven modifications. The sheer volume of recent activity is staggering. The political crescendo here is impossible to ignore. Felipe Calderón holds the all-time presidential record with 38 reform decrees. But his immediate successors are right on his heels. Enrique Peña Nieto with 28, and Andrés Manuel López Obrador with 27. We're seeing a very clear pattern of modern administrations heavily reshaping that foundational framework.
Yet arguably the most astounding data point we have today is the 11 reform decrees already published by current President Claudia Sheinbaum. Think about that for a second. What does a pace of almost 3 reforms a month mean for the future of the nation's laws? Accumulating this many decrees in merely her first 4 months means the current administration is reshaping the law at a completely unprecedented, record-shattering speed. Averaging this kind of velocity really forces us to ask what it means for the stability of the nation's legal foundations. Constitutional plasticity. Ultimately, all of these massive numbers, the historical anomalies, and these modern shattered records, they all culminate in one crucial, elegant legal concept. That concept is constitutional plasticity. It's the idea of a legal framework that operates not as some rigid artifact, but as a highly elastic living document capable of absorbing societal changes. The metadata proves it. The Constitution bends so it doesn't break. It was deliberately designed to survive by absorbing the impacts and pressures of a constantly shifting society, rather than just sitting rigidly under glass in a museum. And crucially, as the data impartially shows us, the sheer volume of reforms is neither inherently good nor bad. It purely reflects the law's plasticity. Some reforms are absolutely vital, while others are just rapid reactions to current events. The data serves simply as a neutral metric to help us understand who moved the levers of power and when. Mapping this metadata gives us a clear, unbiased lens into historical momentum. So, what final shape will the Constitution take in the coming years to face Mexico's new realities? As the current government tests this historical plasticity at a velocity we have quite literally never witnessed before in the document's 108-year lifespan, we are left to wonder, how will this foundational text ultimately adapt to secure the nation's future? Will it stabilize, or are we entering a whole new era of permanent, rapid-fire constitutional remodeling? It's a fascinating question, and you can bet the data will be right there to tell the story. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.